The thing about the pressure is they need to get home and they need to wrap up and they need to tackle. That was a big part of what happened in week 6 with Jalen Hurts being able to evade the pressure and get out and make plays with his legs, and that's what he does so well.
Countdown to Sunday action between the Bucs and the Eagles in wild card round, the super wild card round of the NFL playoffs. Overstating as usual, but it is a key game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers if they plan on going back to back to the Super Bowls. Yeah, they got to win the first one if they're going to win them all again. We'll see if that's the case. Eagles going to try and stop that in its tracks. Here to give us a Tampa perspective on the Bucs and the Birds matchup from our outlet down in Tampa, Pewter Report, and it does a dynamite job of covering the Eagles on the Bucs on a day in, day out basis. JC Allen joins me on Birds 365. JC, I was making fun of Krause because he doesn't have to use the green screen like me, my previous guest. You go with the black behind you there, buddy. Is that trying to tell us anything about how the Bucs are going to be ready to take on the Eagles this week?
Yeah, it's a curtain call for the Eagles this week. That's what it
is. There you go. Oh, I set you up perfectly for that one. Very good.
You did. How we doing? Great to be back on the show.
Appreciate you coming on board. Thank you very much. If I remember right, last time we had you on, you had like your computer out on a golf cart. You were out getting 9 in or something like that.
Yeah, it's much warmer out there. It's 60 degrees right now, so it's cold. I got to be inside.
Oh, now. Yeah. Oh, man. I feel so badly that it's 60 degrees in Tampa as it's 18 here in Philadelphia. Since you went there, let me follow up. Potential for rain on Sunday? No, we're still a couple days out, and forecasts are what forecasts are. And even Coach Arians quipped yesterday, hey, give it 10 minutes. The weather will change here in Tampa. Not as much on the West Coast as the East Coast of Florida, but if there is rain in the forecast and does rain, I've actually said I think that helps the Eagles because they're going to try and keep this a conservative and a ground and pound type game because that's what they do best, run the football. Your read on the weather, if it is an off track, is that a plus for the Eagles, or am I looking at this through bird-colored glasses?
Arians did say it best. If you don't like there's a saying in Florida, if you don't like the weather, wait 30 minutes. It'll probably change. Monday, we were supposed to get rain. There's 70% chance of rain on Monday. It didn't rain at all. So looking at the forecast now, it does call for rain and high winds. It's exactly like I said. Just got to wait it out. It could definitely change. You could Sunday morning, the rain could not even be there. So, but it does. I think it would play into what Philly wants to do. Obviously, this is the number 1 passing offense in the league for the Buccaneers, and they throw the rock at an exceptional rate. You got Tom Brady led every passing statistical category, even some of the advanced metrics. So to take the ball out of his hands is something that they don't want. They wouldn't want to have to do. But this is Tom Brady too. He can play in any weather situation. We've seen it all the way back from his first season in that snowball against the Raiders. I'm not worried about Tom Brady throwing the ball. Mike Evans yesterday said that he had, the NFL has special rain gloves that helps him catch in the when it's windy, when it's cold, when it's raining out. They'll probably do some wet ball drills. But yeah, it definitely helps the Eagles. That's what they want to do. That's been their bread and butter since they've kind of turned their season around is really run the ball and run it efficiently. So if it's the weather calls for it, that definitely plays into their hand.
All right, wet track, dry track, we'll factor it in when we get there on Sunday. I saw an article on your site about the Bucs defense against the run. Start of the season when these two teams played, they came in as the number 1 run defense in the National Football League. They're not that anymore. They've dropped down a couple of slots. They certainly have been as good. I talked to an Eagle buddy of mine, writer Ruben Frank, who covers the Eagles, and he said second half of the season, Bucs against the run were 18th in the National Football League. So they're dominant in the first half, which included the victory over the Eagles. Not as dominant in the second half. What's been the difference? If they're using the analysis the same way I am, surely they want to make an adjustment to it. What will they do against a team that wants to come in and just try and run it down their throats?
Well, quite frankly, the difference have been injuries, right? I mean, he's lost a lot of players. JPP's out there with a torn rotator cuff and fractured finger, a split finger. They lost Levante David for the last 3 games. They lost Shaq Barrett for the last 2.5 games. Injuries have really started to pile up for this Bucs, and they've been the walking wounded all season long. You look at the secondary, still has not played a complete game together all season long. The last 2 weeks, you thought you were going to get that, but Sean Murphy Bunting goes out in week 17. Jamel Dean goes out. And it's been tackling as well. Devin White has had 3 really bad games tackling. They're going to have to turn it around. They're going to have to make sure they're playing sound technique when it comes to tackling. They're going to have to really hope Levante's back because he's a huge part of that. And they're going to have to get some solid push and make sure that these holes aren't being opened up by this, pretty good Philadelphia offensive line. So there's no doubt in my mind they can turn it around. No team has been able to run on the Bucs for 4 quarters. They've either had nice halves, they've had good quarters, but they haven't been able to do it for 4 quarters. So that's going to be interesting to see if the Eagles can be the first team to do that, and that's certainly going to be their game plan.
No, kind of like the weather. We can speculate on it, but we won't really know until we actually get to 1 o'clock on Sunday. But I'm going to ask you to do just that, speculate. The injuries, as you mentioned, the Bucs have been a little beaten up here in the second half of the season. And they've got guys who are questionable coming into Sunday's game. Some guys are givens, some guys are questionable, some are doubtful, and sometimes questionable guys don't play and doubtful guys end up playing. So you never really know until they get on the field on Sunday. But do your best guess scenario for us. How better will the Bucs be rejuvenated and guys back to the lineup? Is this going to be a better defense because of guys coming back from injury than we've seen over the last quarter of the season?
Oh, for sure. You're bringing back some Pro Bowl, all pro players. Shaq Barrett's going to be back. He's in a knee brace now, but all indications are that he should be back. Jason Pierre-Paul, they've sat him out the last 3 games for rest for this reason to be good to go in the playoffs. Levante David, they're listed as questionable. It's a hopeful, it's a game time type deal. We'll see. They did a walkthrough yesterday at practice. Pads come on today and tomorrow. We'll see what that looks like. But I'm fairly confident. It's a 0-0 season. It's a 1 game, win it or go home. So you got to get your guys out there. You got to make sure that, you're not reserving them. This Eagles team isn't a team, while they are the last team to make it in the playoffs, the 7th seed, and really didn't look like they were going to make it. It's not a team to take lightly, and you've got to make sure you have your troops out there. So I would think that a majority of these guys are back. I know Leonard Fournette's probably going to definitely be back. I mean, that's just one guy. You'll probably be without Rojo, probably without Cyril Grayson. Anthony Nelson looks like a question mark, which is tough because he's great at setting the run, the edge on run, and has really came on as a pass rusher. But, I think the majority of the guys that need to be out there will be out there for this team on Sunday.
Fair enough. And you mentioned Leonard Fournette, who's missed the last couple of weeks. We know how integral he was to the playoff run to the Super Bowl that they made last week. And Brady does like to have that safety blanket guy coming out of the running back that he can check down to. And Fournette became very good at it once he became a Buccaneer. Is that something you're going to have to wait to judge and see the first play? It looks like he's going to go, but going doesn't necessarily equate to being at the top of his game. We've got a similar situation with the Eagles. Jordan Howard, who came in off the scrap heap, ran the ball really effectively with the Eagles, got hurt himself, came back, played the next to last game of the season. You could tell he just wasn't himself. He played. He had a couple of good runs, but he also had some mediocre to poor runs just because he's not 100%. When will you know what level Fournette is playing at?
So Fournette was out of practice, working off to the side, all last week with trainers, doing some sprints, doing some cuts. He looked pretty good. I think he's going to be good to go. No one's 100% this time of year, but as close to it as I think he will be. He'll be out there. And you mentioned, Fournette, that pass catching back, that's going to be a huge role because of the way that Philly plays defense. They're going to give you that 6 to 8 yards underneath in that zone defense. And rely on those rally tackles. And Tom is going to take that. If you give that to him, Tom's going to take that all day. And then you've got to stop a 225-pound Leonard Fournette. So it becomes a difficult matchup. So I think, it's going to take some deviation of what the Eagles have done. Once Tom Brady starts finding Fournette down in the flat over and over again, check down Tom, that's what they call him, it's going to – Philly's going to have to deviate from what their game plan may initially be and what they've done the past 8 weeks of the season and switch it up.
Two guys who were pretty key to the Bucs win over the Eagles back in October and for the entire season, being honest, in the Bucs passing game are not going to be part of it on Sunday. Chris Godwin is injured and is unquestionably out. Antonio Brown is in parts unknown. So he's not going to be making any plays against the Eagles like he did earlier this year. How are they going to fill that void? Not one, but two key receivers no longer here. I know Tom Brady has an unbelievable, the reason he's the GOAT, unbelievable capability of bringing guys to a level that they've never been at before. Who are those guys going to be on Sunday?
Well, you start with a guy who didn't play on week 6, and that's a guy that I don't think Philadelphia's defense has an answer for, and that's Rob Gronkowski. You look at the linebackers, look at the safeties that the Eagles have. I don't see anyone that can match up with Gronk one-on-one and really be able to stop him. Now, that means you have Mike Evans and, with Darius Slay most of the time, if he's lined up. I haven't seen Slay follow many receivers this year around as a shadow, and the Bucs have been creative in getting him in the slot and using him in various different ways. So, those are the guys. And if you look at it, and again, I've said this on other shows, no disrespect to, other than that 2007 year, no disrespect to guys like Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, Troy Brown, but Gronk and Mike Evans is the best duo that he's had, strictly, throughout his career, so you still got two really strong weapons. You're throwing Leonard Fournette out of the backfield, who's been, amazing catching the ball. Can he turn on his running prowess and become playoff Lenny again? We'll see. But there's still weapons there. Scotty Miller, still that he hasn't been involved much, but he's still that guy to separate, take the top off with his speed. Rashad Perriman's another speed guy who can play, a variety of roles. We've seen him win the game-winning touchdown a few weeks back. Last week, he made an incredible toe drag swag catch to set them up in the red zone. So there's guys. Tyler Johnson's done a good job stepping up. There's guys there that will be able to exploit, the Steve Nelsons and the Avonte Maddoxes. Especially if you can get Mike Evans on Avonte Maddox. Avonte Maddox has turned into a really good nickel cornerback. But you're going with 5'8", 180 pounds versus Mike Evans. It's a bit of a mismatch there.
We know that Fournette's going to be the number one guy if he's good to go, and we'll be able to judge that when we see a couple series on Saturday. It's going to be on Sunday. But if he's not 100% and or he re-injures himself, not going to be Ronald Jones. Will look like he's going to be out. Keyshawn Vaughn has done a nice job, draft pick, who's come in and made a couple of plays for them over the last couple of weeks. But they may get Giovani Bernard back, who I thought was an under-the-radar signing by the Bucs during the offseason. Very good at catching the ball out of the backfield. Is he going to be a factor in the game plan? Does he only play if Fournette isn't what he's supposed to be? What does Giovani Bernard bring to the table for the Bucs if he's back in the lineup on Sunday?
I mean, you mentioned it, pass catching. He's one of the best pass catching backs in the NFL, even at his age, and even with the injuries, if he can come back. Bucs fans were kind of in the media. We were like, "What are you doing? Use Gio more." And Bruce was adamant. He's our third down back and our 2-minute drill back, and just what he brings is as well as a pass blocker too. He's one of the best backs in the league as a pass protection block. Not that I think that the Bucs will need a lot of pass protection from that because the Eagles don't blitz a lot. They're 31st in the league in blitz rate and blitz percentage and 31st in the league in sacks. And there's a few reasons for that. But having him back there in case that's necessary is huge. I'm not sure how much he'll be utilized in the game plan because it is his first game back. I think he's pretty healthy at this point to come back. But I don't know if he's going to be, because he wasn't before, a huge part of the game plan. But if they get him out there and they need him, I think he'll do exactly what he does best, and that's, catch the ball, make some yards after the catch, and really help this team push the ball, especially if it's on third downs.
Everybody respects Vita Vea as maybe the best run stopper in the National Football League, as well they should. But much like with Brady, the Eagles want to get pressure, don't know how they're going to get it, but they're going to try. Are the Bucs ready to make Jalen Hurts' life more difficult? The Eagles want to run the football, but if they can't, scoreboard dictates they've got to be able to throw it. Where's the Buck pressure going to come from?
Yeah, I mean I think that's the Bucs game plan, right? Is hopefully get the ball first, go down and score. get a big stop on that Eagles offense and then get the ball back and score. And now you put the Eagles down 2 scores, and now it kind of takes them out of what they want. You go up 3 scores, it forces them to pass. So, that's exactly what the Bucs want, and they want to be able to get those guys and send those guys. I mean, this is the team that blitzes more than any team in the entire league. At an alarming rate sometimes, where you're like, stop blitzing. But
Oh, that's why Todd Bowles belongs in Philadelphia. They love the blitz here in Philadelphia, but it just doesn't come very often.
No, but I mean, that's the thing. So I think it's going to come from obviously Vita Vea pushing the pocket, Nadam Kasu and Will Golston, who's really come on as a pass rusher this year. And then you're getting Shaq back in JPP. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka's that wild card. He can play inside, play outside. He's been great. They'll send Devin White on some blitzes. They'll send some, Jordan Whitehead or Antoine Winfield on some blitzes. So they'll try to get the pressure. The thing about the pressure is they need to get home and they need to wrap up and then tackle. That was a big part of what happened in week 6 with Jalen Hurts being able to evade the pressure and get out and make plays with his legs. And that's what he does so well because he's not a pocket quarterback, and that's what Vita Vea is going to want to do, is going to want to push Jason Kelce back in the pocket and slide out Hurts to make him, less effective as a passer. And that's where it's on your guys on the end. If they're blitzing or if they're just, they need to contain. They need to contain and they need to wrap up. And tackling's been an issue.
You mentioned earlier that you haven't seen much of Darius Slay traveling with the best wide receiver on Eagles defense. And you're right, the DC, Jonathan Gannon, prefers not to do that. He prefers to stick with the zone defenses that he likes. And he only sends Slay with the best player when he thinks it's necessary. Oh, I think he's going to think it's necessary this week. So expect him to follow and travel with Evans a lot. Flip side it, Bucs on defense. Right now, Devontae Smith is not only the Eagles' best wide receiver, he's their best wide receiver by a pretty damn big margin. Yeah. So I would think the Bucs would be thinking along the same lines if they have a corner that they have that kind of trust in. Gannon has that kind of trust in Slay. If they were going to do it against Devontae Smith, that you were going to put your best cornerback on him and send him wherever on and maybe shade the defense a little that way, who does that corner responsibility fall on?
Hands down, Carlton Davis, who I think is a top 10 cornerback in the league. You see what he's been able to do against some of the top flight receivers in the league. DeAndre Hopkins, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, shut him down last year, 6 catches, 60-something yards. To me, that's shutting down Devontae Adams. So he's a lockdown corner. I think that's the guy who you're going to want to put on Devontae Smith. But I also have confidence in the other corners. Jamel Dean is ranked, as a top 10 coverage corner in the league this season. He's got the speed as well.
Is he going to play? Because I know he was limited in practice yesterday. Yeah.
He's got some
maybe.
He's got some hamstring tightness, but he'll play. Him and Sean Murphy-Bunting, both hamstring tightness, but I think both of those guys will play. But yeah, I mean, Carlton Davis would be the guy, but I don't necessarily know if they're going to have that kind of, hey, you follow him, you follow that guy, because I think they have confidence in all their cornerbacks to get the job done. Now, if he starts burning them, they might say, all right, Carlton, you got to follow this guy. But, right now I don't see that being the game plan.
All right, last thing, and I just ran this by my previous guest about Eagle Nation and their ability to travel. They're one of the better traveling fan bases in the National Football League. They love their birds. There are some people who can afford to pay big money for tickets, and they got on a plane and go. But you got to be able to get the tickets. And after last year's Super Bowl, it seems to me like the Bucs attendance certainly went to sellout levels and locked in too, that other teams' fan bases just weren't getting into their games this year. Playoff game is a playoff game, which makes it even tougher. Give us your percentage on what you think the Eagle fan base is going to be able to get as far as the percentage of the stadium goes.
They'll probably get around 25%, I think. I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, even regular, if you weren't a season ticket holder this year, you're buying tickets on the secondary market. I mean, they sold out every season ticket this season. So it's, I think they're probably at 25, 30%. Some Tampa Bay fans, or they're either out of state or whatnot, or they'll find sell your tickets for $800, and they'll be happy making that money and watching it at home, especially if the weather does call for rain. So they'll definitely get some tickets out there and should have a good. I know a few guys who are already going out there, so they should have a good fan base out there for sure.
Right, and there are some tickets that are purchased just purely for resale, so they're going to be able to get some percentage of the stadium. I think you got a pretty good number on it. I think 2025 is the top. All right, last thing. No, you're leaning toward the Bucs. You're a good Buck reporter, and you gave us some good insight, and I can read what you're saying. The Bucs are an 8.5-point favorite. They're supposed to win this game. They are the defending champions. Here's the question I'll ask you. Will this be a one-score game in the fourth quarter? If Tampa's ahead, will it be by 14, 17, 21 points, or will it be within 8 or 7 or a one-score? Will at any point in the fourth quarter this be a one-score game?
I could see that potentially, but I could also see it being like Week 6, where the Eagles are rallying back as well. I currently have the Bucs as a 13-point, with a 13-point margin of victory right now, 33-20. But the Eagles, they present some challenges, and it's going to take a really solid game plan by the Eagles and execution, of course. I think if you're the Eagles, what you need to do is you need to look at what the Panthers did in the first quarter last week against the Bucs and sustain that. They ran the ball and they ran the clock off. The Bucs had 3 offensive plays, a 3 and out, and they took over the entire first quarter, pretty much the entire 15 minutes they had the ball. They ended up with 3. And that's not what you can't do that with the Bucs. So especially the way they've been playing at home, they need to have long drive, clock killing, drive sustaining drives that put 7 on the board. And if they can do that, it's going to take the Bucs out of their element. But it's going to be a tough matchup for Philly's defense. I think even so. I think the Bucs have put on 33 points, average at home. They've been one of the best home teams, 7-1, which is a franchise record. Eagles haven't been too great on the road. Their resurgence hasn't came against great competition, so this is going to be a big test for them. And if they can get by it, they're going to have a lot to celebrate for. But this is an empty the playbook out week for the Eagles too, right?
Sure.
It's
Yeah.
You're not holding anything for next week. We made the playoffs as a 7 seed. We weren't expected to be here. And we'll see what they can come up with because it's going to be a tough challenge, I think.
All right, JC, I lied. I got one more question for you.
Okay.
Just a little aside. Will Tom Brady be made available to the media either of the next 2 days, either today or tomorrow?
He'll be available today to Tampa media. I'm not sure if it's if he's going to do conference call with Eagles media,
okay.
But they can. I believe they can. It's all Zoom now. So,
right, everything's Zooming. So here's the question I would ask you: if you feel free to ask it of Tom, if you so desire. Don't think you will, but I'll put it out there into the ether. What is Brady going to be doing at 8:30 on Saturday night? We know how proficient a preparer he is and how dedicated he is. But that Belichick guy's going to be coaching in the playoffs. That wasn't a worry last year when Tom was making his Super Bowl run because Bill had the rest of the year off after the season finished. But they will be playing Saturday night at 8 o'clock while Tom's getting his beauty rest for the upcoming game. Will he be tempted to turn the TV on and watch his former mates play? Just a thought, just something that made me say, if you want to go ahead and use that with Brady this afternoon, I know you got more important things to ask, but if you want to sneak that in there.
It's an interesting question because Julian Edelman just dropped $100K on a Bucs Patriots Super Bowl. I don't know if you've seen that on the Twitter sphere, but yeah, he dropped a $100,000 on a bet to win $500K. For it to be a Tampa Patriots Super Bowl, so that's interesting. And just to address some of your listeners, I understand that the Eagles are 6-3 on the road, but a lot of those road wins aren't against great competition, and the ones you dropped are obviously significant. 41 points to the Cowboys,
Yeah,
33 points to the Raiders. So I didn't want to bring it up. I don't want to have you flashbacks, but you guys call me out in the comments over there about your road record. Look at who you played, and then come back at me.
that's true. The Raiders game was the ugly game, but that was the game that you could make the argument change them into a running team, which has been rather successful for them. And if they can run against the Bucs on Sunday, they can win the game. If they can't, yeah, it could get ugly. You're right about that.
Right.
JC, good stuff. Appreciate you coming on board, and feel free to ask Brady what he's doing on Saturday night if you get the chance later today.
It's a good question. I appreciate you guys having me on here, and hey, it should be a fun game. Really looking forward to it. And again, thanks for having me on.
You got it. JC Allen from Pewter Report here with us on Birds 365. All right, coming back, we're going to put a little bit of an early bow on the show today. We'll save all our best stuff for tomorrow because that is the penultimate day before the game. So we'll come back and wrap up another edition of Birds.